Welcome back to Raid Guides in a Trenchcoat featuring the Abyssal Fracture Extreme. Zero Mas. How do you make Zeromus sad? You ignore him. You ignore him. Ignore him. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. The whole marker dance here can get summed up into needing DPS and support pairs where melee should go with tanks and range should go with the healers. You'll each pick a quadrant, a meteor priority, and then combine with your north-south neighbors for a light wine and cheese party. Now I'll be perfectly honest, I had control over the parties I did for this fight. As a result, I don't know what other marker sets are out there being used by the weird loners who swear that they A, have a static, and B, said static does the markers differently. But these are the markers that I suggest, and absolutely no disrespect to loners. If you are a loner, please use these markers so that you don't become a weird loner. The first few mechanics are pretty standard extreme content fare. Abyssal Nox is your heal check, Sable Thread is your tank check, and between those is your DPS's first grade reading comprehension check. Abyssal Nox will toss a big bubble of darkness right onto your head, dropping your health to 1. Your healers will then have to scramble to use all their GCD healing to bring everyone back to full before the doom markers go off. Immediately following this, some lines will extend from the center of the room and explode at the endpoints. Stand where the endpoints aren't. You'll then have to immediately switch into a place that just exploded before all these safe spots become unsafe spots. All patterns will allow you to hover between the north and northwest, but there is more than one safe spot. There's nothing stopping you if you want to assert your dominance and proving you know the mechanic by not following the pack, but more likely than not, everyone else will just see that you were out of position and blame you for a wipe on another mechanic down the line. Next up is Sable Thread, which is a line stack AoE where the tanks do most of the heavy lifting and your only job is to not leave after the first attack since it's going to hit 6 times and there is no way you have any positionals on a wall boss. This is then followed by Dark Matter, which is another tank or samurai buster depending on if your healers pressed anything besides glare during the line stack. Visceral Whirl is an attack that you're going to see a lot, at least if you can get a camera angle that lets you see it through his tendrils or nails or whatever these are supposed to be. There will be a triangular safe spot right next to the boss where you can rest before the real 3-dimensional thinking begins. 3 X's will spawn after the tendrils go off. These X's will eventually extend to the edges of the map, so find the spot where none of them are facing. That's where the preferred markers come in, because you'll notice that there are 4 spots along the front of the arena, each of which could be one of the safe spots along with the northwest and northeast corners. Okay, I can't take any of Zeromus' voice lines seriously, they just sound like a low-pitched, slowed-down Animal Crossing character with the cranky attribute. I'm also a Fizz range player and I can't read text, let alone mechanics, so I have no idea what he's actually saying. What's that, Zeromus? Xenos is still alive and he needs my help? All I need to do to save him is give you my credit card number, the expiration date, and the 3 digits on the back? The next attack is Flare, which spawns 2 towers. The Uptime Goblin melee players will fight tooth and nail to soak the north tower, which leaves the more benevolent range players to take the back one. As soon as the flares hit the towers, you should exit them so as to not be engulfed in the flames, and then turn your attention to all of the solar flares. Much like the X's of Visceral Whirl, those flares will extend out in the direction they're pointing, so you need to stand where they won't be. Generally, this is dead center but a little to the left, 2 o'clock, or way out on the far sides. Void Bio is Zeromus' mid-pull trip to the bathroom. He's gonna unleash some noxious fume bubbles of spicy bean casserole proportion, and it will debilitate you if you sniff around it too much. Avoid the staggered march of bubbles, and make your way to the safe spot for another Visceral Whirl. Now I have some information for you White Knight protagonist tanks out there regarding this mechanic. You cannot pop immunity and run through them all to clear a path. We had a tank swear up and down that he would hold the line and create an opening for us to run through. He hit 1, struggled to collide with a few more, and then 5 seconds later he popped a second one and died. So my tank is, in fact, a liar. Following that is Big Bang, to which the aptly named strategy is called Scatter. Everyone will get hit by a lightning strike while another swarm of lightning strikes target other parts of the arena. Find a spot where you won't get hit by those, or the lightning strikes targeted on your teammates. Now it's time for the first fun mechanic of the fight. Void Meteor will drop a whole baker's dozen meteors in the north of the arena along with 1 straggler in the south. It's kind of thematic in a way. 13 meteors in the 13th. It's either Square Enix's acute attention to detail or my 10th grade English inclination to read into the details like the blue curtains of a room, alluding to the ever-present sadness of the character's mental state as it relates to the house that they live in not truly being their home, rather than just being blue fucking curtains. Now that I say that out loud, it's probably the second thing. Anyways, meteors come down, stand in the middle and mid, and then get ready for dicks. These overly phallic tethers will first latch on to either all of your DPS or all of your support. That's your first group. Shortly thereafter, everyone else will be invited to the gangbang and you'll need to resolve. First off, it's important to note that you need to edge your dick so that he doesn't get his rocks off. If any one of these tethers are outlined in the red of lustful anticipation, it will wipe the encounter when it goes off. But by contrast, you have to make sure that your PP is fully erect, signified by the orange line because nobody likes a floppy dick. The pink, ribbed for her pleasure line is only for her pleasure if she enjoys getting pelted in the head with a rock. So remember, expand dong. The first group of tethers need to go out as far as they can to drop their meteors, and then the second group needs to pray that enough space was left for them so that they don't need to fake an orgasm. Every video I swear it's my last dick joke, and then every time game developers try to one-up their overtly Freudian raid mechanics. Next up is another cast of Visceral World with the added bonus of distance-based chains. Group up in the center, and then DPS run to the north safe spot, and the tanks run to the south safe spot. Rest in peace, tank uptime. At some point in the previous slew of mechanics, you will have gotten some debuffs to pay attention to. The first is an accelerator bomb, which will be nearing the end of its countdown right as you get safe from the first half of Visceral Whirl, so stop everything that you're doing or face the consequences. Then you get to deal with the X's again, immediately followed by the O's of another round of spread AoEs. Since you're all huddled up in a corner together, get the faster players to either En Avant or Hell's Ingress away and watch as all of the casters play chicken with the spot where everyone was originally standing. Finally, to round out the last of your debuffs, one player got a spread and two players got some forked lightning stuff. The tanks are going to get targeted with busters, so they need to step away from everybody. The forked lightning players will also need to step away from everybody, and anyone else remaining needs to group up so that the stack player doesn't die. Fractured Eventide is the second fun mechanic in the sense that you're putting the lives of the entire party up to the whims of RNG and one person's ability to problem solve. Zeromus will start looking either right or left, which will indicate where he'll start his grape soda laser. Additionally, one player will get marked with this blue wheel, indicating that they're going to have the most heavily shaken can of grape soda lobbed at them. Send that player away to bait the soda can somewhere on the south side of the arena. Either on the same side if you don't trust your healers, or in the opposite corner if you do. There's a tech where you can rescue your soda can player through the laser, otherwise everyone needs to do the aerobic workout and avoid getting crushed. Don't be fooled by the cast name. Big Crunch is the next mechanic, and it's the exact same lightning blitz from the Big Bang mechanic. This will then launch into another heal check Abyssal Nox, and then a bunch of repeated hits in Saving Thread. Up to this point, every mechanic happens in this order, the only variance being the patterns in which something happens. That all changes with our next mechanics, Branding Flare and Sparkling Flare. Regardless of the cast, you'll group up into your light parties to soak towers, and as soon as the fireballs land, you'll run off to your predetermined quadrant with your partner. If the cast was Branding Flare, then you'll bundle up with your buddy, and if you get Sparkling Flare, then you'll file for divorce and stand as far away from your partner as possible. Two people will also have these chase AoE markers on them, and whichever person has that in your quadrant should be given priority to be in the far outside corner. Complete the spread stack with your partner, and then the chased player should run clockwise from their quadrant while hugging the exterior wall. Everyone else, group up in the middle. If the two players with the chase end up in the same quadrant, then you could run together, but you could also split away and make it very abundantly clear which of you skipped leg day should the situation arise. This leads into another round of Noxious Bean Casserole Bubbles, and then into another Hentai Bait Visceral Whirl. The phase shift happens somewhere in the ballpark of 23%, so depending on how cracked your team is, you might start to skip mechanics here. If not, you'll get some tank busters, whichever of the two flares you didn't get, some other mechanics, and then a soft enrage. But upon hitting 23%, Ren the Rift will be cast and the skies will shift to be as red as California in the summer months, and you'll be thrown into a massive clusterfuck of final mechanics. The first of which is Nostalgia. Zeromus will channel his energy to bombard you with visions of your past in the form of crazy widespread purple AoEs, some raid-wide fists, and some raid-wide magic pulses. This is then followed by Flow of the Abyss, which is another mechanic with a lot of different options for how it plays out. The first aspect is the broken fourth wall over here where Yoshi P will fire at a laser that burns a third of the arena. That said, it feels like the only thirds it can actually target are the front two, so the back wall is generally safe for players with a ranged attack, which is everybody except for monks. I'm told that Flow of the Abyss can target the back third, but I've also been told that there are McDonald's in the world where the ice cream machine actually works. Alongside this laser will be one of three mechanics: a self-explanatory full party stack, some enums that should be taken with your corner quadrant partner, or spread AoE Aquamarine-esque lasers that will leave lingering torrents of pain wherever you are standing. Unlike a lot of mechanics with variant forms like this, it is not a requirement that you see all of them in a fight. You could just as easily see all 3 of them as you could getting a run that's oops all emus. The last new mechanic is Cosmic Nails. Once again, a third of the arena is going to get lasered by the ever-growing cracks in reality, but that's going to be the least of your concern. The boss will telegraph pizza slices that he'll strike in rapid succession and then sprinkle a hefty topping of pepperonis across the field. But like fucking Christ, how are you supposed to know what's going on? There's so many goddamn particle effects that I can barely tell where I'm standing, let alone where any of my teammates and the mechanics are. Is this safe? Where did these 3 Vuln stacks come from? How am I supposed to see all the lines on the floor through this? Where's my super suit? How many gorillas did I superimpose over the footage while you weren't paying attention? The answer may surprise you. Anyways, the fight from there is just a repeat of the previous 3 mechanics. You'll get another flow of the Abyss, another Cosmic Nails, a walk through Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, a flow of the Abyss, and then probably some other stuff. But keep spamming your buttons and congrats! You've completed the Abyssal Fracture. Now, if only your personal sins against Party Finder could be forgiven as easily as Golbez was forgiven for enslaving Asdaya for centuries. Go watch a real